Everything in your life, your love, your failures, your abundance, your lack, is not random. It is vibration. And vibration always obeys identity. You don't attract what you want, you project what you are. Every word, every breath, every posture is a decree shaping your reality. If you feel trapped in cycles, it's not fate, it's frequency. And the moment you change your hum, the universe cannot resist. Today, you will learn how to stop recycling your past and start projecting your destiny. And so it is. Before form, the primordial pulse, before anything you touch, before anything you name, there was vibration. Form is not the origin, it is the residue. Matter is not the seed, it is the echo. The table you lean on, the walls that contain you, even the body you inhabit, are not the beginning of reality, they are its shadow. The origin is vibration, a pulse before time, a hum before sound, a frequency before thought. This is the primordial law that the ancient initiates guarded, the law forgotten, when humanity began to confuse what it sees with what is. And here is the first fracture of the modern soul. You were taught to trust what is visible and to ignore what is invisible, to measure the solid and dismiss the subtle, to cling to the already crystallized and forget the field that preceded it. Yet what imprisons you is not the weight of matter, but the ignorance of its source. Matter is nothing more than slowed vibration, a frozen wave sustained by unconscious emission. And what is sustained unconsciously is repeated mercilessly. This is why so many lives recycle. This is why you see the same obstacles return, the same failures that dress themselves in new costumes, the same relationships echo the same wounds. You call it misfortune, karma, or coincidence, but it is simply repetition, the persistence of an old vibration you have not yet claimed. You do not live what you desire, you live what you sustain, and until you awaken as an emitter, the field will keep mirroring the unconscious pattern that commands it. The primordial pulse that shaped worlds did not ask for permission. It did not beg to be noticed. It emanated from fullness, not from hunger. That same pulse sleeps in you. You are not a passive vessel waiting for life to fill you. You are a projector whose very silence vibrates into form. The question is not whether you emit. You cannot stop emitting. The question is what frequency you are sustaining without awareness, what forgotten pulse you are replaying day after day. Look at your reality honestly. It is not random. Every repeated scene is evidence of a vibration that has been allowed to endure. Every echo of scarcity, every loop of betrayal, every mirror of failure is not proof of your weakness, it is proof of your power. You have emitted long enough to sculpt a form so dense it became inescapable. But what is sculpted can be resculpted, what has been frozen can be melted, and what is unconscious can be remembered. Before form there is always the field. This is the law that removes excuses and also restores sovereignty. The field does not punish it, reflects. It does not judge, it obeys. If the emission is fractured, the reflection will be fractured. If the emission is coherent, the reflection will be coherent. Life is not a lottery, it is a correspondence. The universe does not distribute fortune or misfortune as if you were a child at the mercy of an absent parent. It returns precisely what is sustained. And this return is so faithful, so exact, that you can read your vibrational state by simply observing what repeats in your days. The ancients understood this with reverence. To them, vibration was not metaphor. It was law. In the temples of hermetic silence, the disciple was not taught to speak first, but to vibrate first. He was trained to hold a single tone in his heart until his entire body became its resonance. Only then could he speak, because they knew the word without the pulse is noise, and the pulse without coherence is chaos. The initiate was reminded, do not think you create by asking, you create by emitting. You too must return to this forgotten remembrance. The first step is not to demand, but to listen, to detect the pulse you already emit. What hum lingers in your chest when you wake before thought appears? What atmosphere fills the room when you enter, even before you speak? What frequency does your silence sustain? That is your true creation. Not the affirmations you recite, not the hopes you conceal, but the unconscious vibration that you have allowed to play like an ancient drum in the background of your life. Do not mistake this for condemnation. To realize you are the source is liberation. If you were only a victim of external events, your destiny would be chained to chance. But if the world is the mirror of your pulse, then to change the pulse is to change the reflection. The key is not to manipulate circumstances, but to realign the vibration that precedes them. You have already seen what happens when you emit unconsciously recycled pain, inherited fields, invisible prisons. Now imagine what happens when you emit consciously. New architectures, fresh harmonies, forms that never existed, because you never dared to sustain their pulse. The primordial hum does not discriminate between light and shadow. It will densify whatever is sustained. This is why fear repeated becomes reality, why resentment held becomes illness, why doubt replayed becomes distortion. But it is also why joy sustained becomes abundance, why dignity held becomes sovereignty, why peace vibrated becomes order. The law is neutral, the mirror is exact, and your task is not to plead with the mirror, but to master the hum. So stand at the threshold of remembrance, close your eyes, and imagine your life stripped of all form. No walls, no names, no history, only vibration. Feel the subtle rhythm that remains the bass note that defines you more than any story. That is the primordial pulse that shapes your world. If you dislike what it has created, do not fight the form. Change the note. For the form will always obey the pulse, and the pulse always precedes the form. You are not here to imitate inherited frequencies. You are here to reclaim the original hum that knew how to create worlds. Before form there was vibration, before time there was resonance. Before you forgot you were an emitter, and the moment you remember, you stop recycling and you begin projecting resonance, not chance. Why the universe obeys frequency. There is no such thing as luck. There is no blind hand of fortune, no whimsical destiny, distributing blessings and punishments without reason. What you call coincidence is resonance. What you call fate is frequency. The universe does not act at random. It answers the vibrational law with a precision that makes mathematics look uncertain. To understand this is to destroy the illusion of accident and to awaken into the responsibility of emission. Resonance is the hidden law behind everything that appears to align or misalign in your life. When two frequencies match, they amplify each other. When they do not, they repel. The ancients knew this long before modern science gave names to vibration and sound. They observed that when two strings were tuned to the same note, striking one would cause the other to tremble in sympathy. They called this the secret of correspondence. What moves in you moves outside of you. What sustains itself within you seeks itself beyond you. And the world is forced to obey because resonance is not preference. It is law. If this law feels cruel, it is only because you have been taught to seek outcomes without aligning identity. You want peace, but you vibrate anxiety. You long for love, but you emit abandonment. You desire abundance, but you carry a frequency of lack. And the field which has no morality, no pity, no judgment, returns only what it has received. This is why so many seekers pray with fervor, affirm with repetition, visualize with hunger, and yet repeat the same cycles. The words they say, the images they hold, are contradicted by the vibration they actually sustain, and the field being resonance itself cannot give what is not matched. Do you see now why it is not enough to ask? Asking is noise if the vibration behind it is fractured. Resonance answers not your request, but your state. It aligns not with what you desire, but with what you are. A tone cannot pretend to be another note. The string will not vibrate to please you. It vibrates because it has been tuned. And the universe does not bend to the voice of desire. It bends to the hum of identity. This is why the ancients trained themselves in coherence, not in effort. They did not waste energy shouting into the sky or repeating phrases into the void. They tuned themselves the way a musician tunes an instrument, adjusting thought, emotion, and will until the note of their being rang clear. Once coherent, the field responded effortlessly, because resonance does not require force. It only requires alignment. The moment the tone is pure, the environment rearranges itself to match. Here lies the secret behind every manifestation that seems miraculous. It is never chance, it is correspondence. What you see as sudden opportunity, perfect timing, or divine intervention is simply resonance made visible. When your frequency changes, you slip into a reality that was always waiting for you. The doors that once seemed locked are revealed to have been aligned to another key. Change the key, and the lock obeys. This is not miracle. This is law. But what of misfortune? What of suffering that returns again and again? These two are resonance. They are the echoes of vibrations sustained unconsciously. Fear is not neutral. Doubt is not passive. Resentment is not harmless. Each is a tone that vibrates steadily in the field, summoning experiences that mirror its frequency. You think you are unlucky. You believe life has conspired against you. But the truth is simpler and more demanding. You are resonating with what you do not yet recognize. And until that vibration is altered, the echo must return. This is why repetition is sacred. It is not punishment, it is feedback. The same wound returns until the frequency that emits it changes. The same type of person appears until the vibration of abandonment is transmuted. The same failures reappear until the tone of unworthiness is dissolved. The universe is not against you, it is obedient. It will continue to mirror your frequency with ruthless fidelity until you remember that you are the tuner, not the victim. Pause and ask yourself, what do I keep encountering? What patterns seem to chase me no matter how far I run? These are not accidents. They are signatures of resonance. They are the mirrors showing you the frequency you have refused to hear. Do not curse them. Read them. They are the map of your emission. They are the sound of your unconscious being played aloud by the world. To change them, you must stop negotiating with form and begin working with vibration. Stop pleading for the reflection to shift. Change the light that casts it. Stop fighting the echo. Transform the voice that produced it. This is resonance in practice, not manipulating the external, but retuning the internal until the external cannot help but adjust. Understand this, and you will no longer waste time chasing outcomes. You will no longer live in the exhausting cycle of effort and disappointment. You will work at the only level that matters, the frequency you sustain. When coherence is your atmosphere, reality obeys without resistance. The doors open, not because you forced them, but because your tone matched their lock. The relationships align, not because you begged for love, but because your vibration no longer tolerated abandonment. The opportunities emerge, not because fortune smiled on you, but because resonance could no longer deny you. Chance is the illusion of the sleeping soul. Resonance is the law of the awakened. Life is not a game of odds, but a dance of frequencies. And the universe, vast and impartial, does not gamble. It vibrates, it mirrors, it obeys. So the question is not what you want, but what you are willing to sustain. Tune yourself, and the field will tune with you. Refuse to tune, and you will call it fate. But the universe does not play dice. It plays resonance, and resonance never fails. How habitual vibration shapes life. Most people do not create. They recycle. They do not live fresh realities. They replay inherited ones. They do not sculpt new forms from the silence of the soul. They repeat the dense echoes of vibrations long forgotten. This is why the same patterns appear in families, why the same wounds echo across generations, why the same frustrations return dressed in different faces. The human being, unconscious of their role as emitter, continues to vibrate the patterns they were given, and the obedient universe projects them again and again. You believe you are evolving because the scenery shifts, but look closely, and you will see the same story written into every chapter of your life. The names of the actors change, the locations, vary, the circumstances disguise themselves, but the plot remains identical. The betrayal repeats, the scarcity returns, the fear reasserts itself, and you tell yourself it is misfortune. Yet misfortune is nothing but unconscious repetition, vibration left unexamined, sustained without awareness. To recycle is not to be punished. It is simply to vibrate by habit rather than by will. Habit is the true architect of most lives. The thoughts you repeat without observation, the emotions you indulge without question, the words you speak without awareness, these become the tones that structure your field. They do not need your conscious approval to emit. They vibrate simply because you have allowed them to remain. And what vibrates continuously shapes form. This is why cycles exist. This is why life feels circular instead of ascending. Until you become conscious of what you habitually emit, you will live the same year 100 times and call it a life. The ancients called this the prison of the shadow. They understood that the unconscious is not passive, it is an active emitter. Every unacknowledged wound, every unspoken fear, every unresolved memory continues to vibrate in the silence of your field. And because the universe is resonance, those vibrations are returned as circumstances, relationships, and outcomes. Thus, the shadow becomes the hidden programmer of your destiny. Not because you are cursed, but because what vibrates must project, and what projects must take form. Do you see why cycles repeat? It is not because you are destined to suffer, but because the universe cannot disobey the emission you sustain. If you vibrate fear of abandonment, you will summon experiences of abandonment. If you emit unworthiness, you will project scenarios of rejection. If you carry scarcity, you will see it reflected in every opportunity. Not because the field has judged you, but because it has obeyed you. This is the difference between recycling and projecting. Recycling is unconscious emission repetition of inherited tones. Projecting is conscious emission creation of new tones sustained with coherence. One keeps you trapped, the other sets you free. But here lies the pain: most people mistake recycling for fate. They accept the loop as inevitable, blaming luck, karma, or divine punishment, instead of recognizing it as the reflection of sustained vibration. They change partners, but repeat the same heartbreak. They change jobs, but replay the same frustrations. They move cities, but carry the same emptiness. Because the projector is within, not without. Until the emission changes, the screen must show the same film. To believe otherwise is to live as a prisoner of your own unconscious vibration. The way out is not to force circumstances, but to become aware of the habits that emit them. Begin with observation. Ask, what do I keep experiencing again and again? What stories repeat, regardless of my choices? These are the echoes of your habitual vibration. They are not punishments, they are teachers. Each cycle is an invitation to remember that you are not meant to recycle, you are meant to project. The difference is awareness. The moment you recognize a loop, you have the power to interrupt it. Recognition dissolves unconsciousness, and unconsciousness is the fuel of repetition. To project is to choose a new vibration and sustain it until it solidifies into form. It is to step out of the inherited loop and tune yourself to a different frequency. This is not fantasy, it is law. The same way fear repeated became form, so too can joy sustained become form. The same way unworthiness sculpted rejection, so too can dignity sculpt respect. The field does not care whether you recycle or project. It only reflects. You are the one who must decide whether to emit by habit or by will. Understand this, and you will no longer accept cycles as destiny. You will no longer resign yourself to repetition. You will see clearly that every loop is proof of your creative power, even when used unconsciously. If you can create endless suffering without knowing it, imagine what you can create when you know. If your unconscious can project prisons, your conscious can project kingdoms. The energy is the same, only the awareness changes. So stop recycling, stop replaying the hum of the shadow. Begin projecting deliberately. Choose the vibration you wish to see reflected. Sustain it not as a performance, but as a memory of your true identity. The loop will dissolve, not because you escaped it, but because you no longer emit it. And once you stop emitting it, the universe, faithful as always, will stop returning it. This is the shift from recycling to projecting, from unconscious repetition to conscious creation. You were not born to live circles. You were born to generate spirals, to ascend through vibration, to project realities never seen before. The habit of recycling is ignorance. The art of projecting is remembrance. Choose remembrance, and the cycle ends. Creation is not born from thought alone. If it were your scattered ideas, your countless affirmations, your endless rehearsals of desire would have already built a paradise around you. But thought isolated is a spark without fire. It flickers, it glows for a moment, then it dies into the ash of forgetfulness. For a thought to cross the threshold of subtle realms and densify into form, it must be carried by two companions, the fire of the heart and the spear of will. These three, mind, heart, will, are the generating triangle, the architecture of true creation. The ancients guarded this teaching as the first law of inner alchemy. They knew the mind is an architect, but a powerless one, without energy to build or direction to sustain. They compared it to a blueprint drawn on paper, elegant, precise, but inert. The heart is the builder, the furnace that charges the blueprint, with emotional fire giving thought the vibratory strength to pierce into the subtle field. And the will is the guardian, the pillar that holds the structure upright, preventing it from dissolving when winds of doubt or distraction arrive. Together they form the generating triangle. Separate, they collapse into impotence. Look honestly at your own experience. How many times have you thought of a change? How many times have you imagined a new life, a different path, a higher version of yourself? And how many of those thoughts dissolved before the week ended? It was not because you lacked intelligence. It was not because you were unworthy. It was because your thought was unsupported. The mind whispered a new design, but the heart did not ignite it with feeling, and the will did not guard it with constancy. The triangle was broken, and what is broken cannot generate. On the other hand, recall the few times when a thought took root so deeply that it changed the course of your life. Perhaps it was the decision to leave a toxic environment, the certainty that you deserved better, the clarity that you would no longer betray yourself. That thought did not dissolve because it was inflamed by your heart. You felt it as undeniable truth, and sustained by your will you acted and kept acting in its direction. That was the generating triangle at work. In those moments, creation is unstoppable. The field bends not by miracle but by coherence. The mind's role is clarity. A thought must be precise, not vague. It must hold a defined geometry free of contradiction and scattered associations. A noisy mind produces fractured emissions, and fractured emissions cannot organize the field. To think clearly is not to entertain countless possibilities, but to inscribe a single image with sharp edges into the ether. This is why discipline of mind is sacred. Without clarity, the other 2 points of the triangle are wasted fire and wasted endurance. The heart's role is energy. Emotion is not weakness, it is fuel. When aligned with clarity, emotion becomes the power that densifies vibration. Without emotion, a thought is cold, weightless, ephemeral. But infused with genuine feeling, joy, dignity, gratitude, peace, it becomes a living frequency. The ancients knew this, and taught initiates not to suppress emotion, but to refine it, to transmute fear into courage, sorrow into compassion, anger into determination. For only pure, coherent emotion can carry thought across dimensions into form. The will's role is constancy. Without will, clarity and emotion collapse into momentary enthusiasm. Many begin with vision and feeling but abandon the path when the first echo of resistance appears. Will is the unseen guardian that says hold. Will is the refusal to fracture the endurance to sustain the vibration until it condenses into matter. The Hermetic masters described will as the invisible hand that keeps the triangle closed. Without it, the mind may design and the heart may ignite, but the field remains unaltered because the frequency is not sustained long enough to sculpt form. Together, these 3 forces are not addition, but multiplication. Mind without heart is sterile. Heart without will is fleeting. Will without mind is blind. Only when the 3 align does the triangle become a generator, emitting a coherent vibration that the field must obey. The Egyptians called this triad the creative fire. The Vedic sages named it the generating triangle. The Gnostics spoke of it as thought clothed in flame and guarded by strength. Different names, one law. If you wonder why affirmations fail, why decrees collapse, why visualizations scatter, look for the missing point in your triangle. Perhaps your mind is clear, but your heart is cold. Perhaps your heart burns, but your will collapses. Perhaps your will is strong, but your mind is fogged. The triangle is only as strong as its weakest side. To generate is to harmonize all three until they emit as one. This is the path of vibrational discipline. Not endless rituals, not desperate affirmations, but alignment of mind, heart, and will. Think one thought. Feel it as already true. Sustain it without fracture. That is the formula. The field does not resist it, because the field itself is geometric, and the generating triangle is the geometry that commands it. So begin your practice with awareness of the triangle. Do not try to think 1,000 things. Choose one, make it clear. Ignite it with feeling until your body vibrates with it. Then guard it with will, refusing to let it fracture no matter what echo returns. In time, you will see that what once seemed impossible bends before you, not as miracle, but as obedience. For when the generating triangle is complete, creation is inevitable. The human mind is a temple that few learn to guard. Within it pass thousands of thoughts each day, countless sparks of possibility, shadows of memory, echoes of fear, whispers of hope. But most of these sparks scatter. They flicker, collide, contradict, and cancel one another, leaving behind only static. This is fragmented thinking, a mind divided against itself, broadcasting conflicting signals, emitting vibrations that dissolve before they can take shape. The tragedy is not that thought is powerless, but that most people refuse to unify it. They try to create with noise and then despair when the field does not answer. Coherence is the opposite of this noise. It is thought disciplined into singularity, harmonized into one vibration, stripped of contradiction. A coherent thought is not merely an idea, it is an arrow. It pierces the subtle field with clarity and direction. Fragmented thinking, by contrast, is a cloud. It drifts, disperses, and never penetrates. This is why lives built on scattered attention feel directionless. The mind emits in many directions, and so reality reflects confusion. The field is never disobedient, it simply mirrors the incoherence it receives. Think of the radio. If you turn the dial constantly, never holding to one frequency, all you will hear is static. But if you tune with patience, holding firmly to the right wavelength, the signal becomes clear. Your mind works the same way. Each contradictory thought is a twist of the dial. I am abundant one moment, I am lacking the next. I am worthy in the morning, I am unworthy by nightfall. This endless switching prevents resonance from forming. The field does not punish you for inconsistency. It merely reflects it, giving you fractured results, half-formed manifestations, beginnings that never ripen. The ancients called coherence the royal art of thought. They knew that the mind, when aligned, is not merely descriptive, but generative. A coherent thought sustained becomes architecture, vibrating until the field crystallizes around it. But coherence cannot be faked. It requires discipline. To think coherently is to refuse contradiction, to silence the 1,000 lesser voices in service of one commanding note. This is not repression, it is mastery. It is the act of holding one thought steady, like a flame sheltered from the wind, until it burns through the veil of possibility into form. Fragmented thinking, on the other hand, is the normal condition of the unconscious. Most people confuse the quantity of thoughts with power, but power comes from alignment, not multiplication. 10,000 scattered affirmations cannot equal the force of one coherent declaration. Repetition without coherence is only noise made louder, but coherence, even once, emits with a force that rearranges reality. This is why the masters spoke little but created much. Their words were rare because they were coherent. Their silence vibrated with more force than the chatter of the world. Consider the pain of fragmented thought in your own life. How many times have you contradicted yourself within a single day? You dream of freedom, but tell yourself you are trapped. You long for health, but confess daily that you are broken. You ask for abundance, but rehearse the certainty of lack. The field listens to both and mirrors both, leaving you in limbo. You call it stagnation, but it is simply incoherence. Two frequencies colliding produce interference, not harmony. Until you silence one, the other cannot sing. To heal this fragmentation, you must become the guardian of your own mind. Begin with awareness. Notice the contradictions you emit. Write them down. Expose them to the light. You will be astonished by how often you cancel your own frequency with careless thought. Then choose. Decide which thought you will sustain and dismiss the others as noise. Do not argue with them. Do not fight them. Simply withdraw attention. Feed only the thought you wish to become coherent. Like a musician tuning an instrument, you must eliminate dissonance until only one note remains. This is not easy. Fragmentation is addictive because it feels safer to hold many possibilities than to commit to one. But the universe does not answer possibilities, it answers coherence. If you are unwilling to choose, you are unwilling to create. Coherence demands risk. To sustain one thought is to let the others die, but it is in this death of contradiction that true creation begins. The ancients knew this sacrifice well. They taught their students, a divided mind builds nothing. A united mind builds worlds. Understand, coherence is not stubbornness. It is not clinging blindly to an idea in defiance of evidence. It is alignment of thought with heart and will sustain until resonance forms. If a thought does not ignite your heart or call your will, it will never be coherent. But if it does hold it, protect it. Do not let it fragment under the weight of doubt or distraction. The longer you sustain coherence, the more inevitable its reflection becomes. This is the secret behind all enduring creation, not force, but fidelity. So ask yourself, what thought am I willing to sustain without fracture? What single frequency will I allow to define me? Begin there. Do not scatter. Do not dilute. Choose one, hold one, become one. For the field does not obey your noise. It obeys your coherence. And coherence, once attained, cannot be denied. The universe must mirror it. Not because it is merciful, but because it is law. A thought is not casual. It is not an idle spark drifting in the mind like dust in sunlight. A thought is a unit of vibration, a seed of form, a command spoken silently into the field. Yet most people handle thoughts as if they were harmless, letting them wander, unchecked, rehearsing fears, replaying insults, indulging despair, as though these carried no weight. But the universe does not distinguish between thoughts spoken aloud and thoughts whispered within. Both vibrate, both emit, both project. This is why the ancients taught guard the mind as you would guard the sacred fire. Every thought is ritual. To understand this, you must see thought not as imagination but as invocation. Each time you think you call forth a frequency, you open a channel in the field. You vibrate a note that seeks its echo. To think once may be little, but to think repeatedly is to perform a ceremony. Repetition is the altar upon which thought becomes offering. Sustained thought is no longer an idea, it is worship. And what you worship, you become. The question is not whether you perform rituals, but which ones. You are already a priest of your own destiny, conducting rites every hour with the thoughts you allow to dwell. Look at your own life as evidence. What thoughts do you repeat most often? What themes dominate your inner dialogue? These are the rituals you are performing unconsciously. Anxiety rehearsed daily is a ritual of fear. Resentment replayed again and again is a ritual of bondage. Doubt sustained is a ritual of failure. And like all rituals, they summon form. The field does not pity you for them, it obeys them. Each repeated thought strengthens the vibration until it becomes a pattern, and each pattern densifies until it becomes reality. Thought is never idle, it is always creative. The only difference is whether you create unconsciously or with intention. The masters understood this and transformed thinking into sacred discipline. They did not allow their minds to wander aimlessly, nor did they treat imagination as fantasy. To them, every thought was a tool, every image, a sigil, every repetition, a rite. They spoke of thought as inner speech, the hidden language by which the soul addresses the universe. They taught disciples to choose thoughts as carefully as priests choose words in ceremony, for each carried vibration capable of shaping worlds. The untrained call this superstition. The awakened know it is science, the science of vibration, the ritual of thought. This is why coherent thinking once chosen must be practiced as ritual. You do not merely decide a thought once and abandon it. You clothe it with repetition, you energize it with heart, you guard it with will. You return to it daily as if tending an altar, not because the field requires endless convincing, but because the repetition imprints coherence into your own being. The ritual is not to persuade the universe. It is to transform you into the emitter who cannot help but vibrate the chosen frequency. Once you become the ritual, creation is automatic. Understand, ritual is not empty performance. It is not the hollow repetition of words without fire. Empty thought is like incense. Without flame, it produces smoke, but no transformation. A thought becomes ritual only when it is alive, when the mind is clear, the heart engaged, and the will sustaining. This is the generating triangle in practice, enacted again and again until thought ceases to be something you think and becomes someone you are. That is the true aim of ritual, to move identity. Once identity changes, emission changes, and the field reorganizes itself accordingly. But beware the shadow side of ritual. Just as sacred thoughts create temples, profane thoughts create prisons. A person who rehearses fear daily conducts as potent a ritual as the one who rehearses faith. A mind addicted to self-criticism performs an initiation into limitation, as surely as a mystic performs an initiation into power. The universe makes no distinction. Both are rituals, both summon, both shape. This is why vigilance is the price of freedom. To think carelessly is to worship carelessly, and careless worship builds altars you will one day bow before. So take up the discipline of sacred thought. Begin with one, a thought that reflects the identity you wish to embody. Speak it within yourself, not once, but many times, with attention, with breath, with feeling. Let it become your silent mantra, your inner ritual. Each repetition strengthens the pattern. Each return deepens the channel. In time, the thought will no longer feel like effort. It will feel like memory, as though you are remembering what you always were. This is when the ritual is complete, when the thought has moved from intention into identity. Do not underestimate the power of such a practice. Nations are built on thought rituals. Religions are sustained by collective repetition. Cultures are shaped by stories rehearsed for centuries. If such vast realities can be constructed by sustained thought, why would your personal reality be any different? The principle is the same. The difference is only scale. Thought repeated is ritual. Ritual sustained is reality. Therefore, approach your mind as a sanctuary. Do not allow every passing impulse to enter. Cleanse it as you would cleanse sacred ground. Place upon its altar only the thoughts you wish to magnify. Speak them within yourself until they vibrate without effort. Let each repetition be an offering. Let each image be an invocation. And remember, every thought is ritual, whether you choose it or not. Better to choose, better to consecrate, better to become the priest of your own destiny than to live enslaved by rituals you never meant to perform. For the universe does not respond to your intentions alone. It responds to the rituals you enact with thought, and thought sustained cannot be denied. It will project, it will densify, it will become form. Long before language became chatter, long before words became tools of commerce and casual exchange, speech was sacred. The ancients did not waste sound. They understood that the spoken word was not expression, but creation. To name was to call forth. To decree was to configure reality. This was the ancient science of the word, vibration, shaped into sound, sound carved into meaning, meaning projected into form. They knew what modern humanity has forgotten, that every word is a spell, every name, a command, every decree, an act of alignment between inner frequency and outer manifestation. The first civilizations guarded this science as holy. In Egypt, the hieroglyphs were not symbols of ideas. They were living vibrations, each carrying a force that could summon realities when spoken with intention. The priest did not merely write, he activated. The Hebrew mystics knew this too, teaching that the name of God was not a label but a formula of power, a vibration, so potent it could not be spoken carelessly. In Vedic traditions, mantras were understood as living beings, not sounds to be repeated for comfort, but precise vibrational codes that restructured both the body and the cosmos. Across cultures, the word was never trivial. It was the bridge between invisible and visible. Why? Because naming defines frequency. To name a thing is to give it identity, and identity is vibration sustained. When you say I am followed by any word, you are not describing yourself. You are programming the field. You are declaring to your cells, to your nervous system, to your environment, this is the note I will sustain. The decree becomes law, not because the universe listens like a parent, but because vibration organizes itself according to what is spoken with coherence. Sound is vibration made dense. When you decree, you densify the invisible. When you repeat, you engrave it into matter. Modern humanity has lost this reverence. Words are thrown like dust into the wind, scattered with no awareness of their weight. People speak curses upon themselves daily without noticing. I am tired, I am broke, I am unlucky, I am sick. These are not casual phrases. They are decrees. Each one configures reality as surely as a priest speaking over an altar. And because they are spoken with feeling, frustration, despair, resignation, they carry coherence, which means they project. Thus, life becomes heavy, not because fate is cruel, but because the tongue has been careless. You eat the fruit of your lips. You live inside your decrees. The ancients warned of this danger. They taught disciples to guard their words as treasure. Silence was preferred to speech without intention. In many initiatory schools, students were forbidden to speak during periods of training until they had purified their vibration, for they understood that speech without purity was chaos. They believed that to misuse words was to invite disorder into one's field. Only when the disciple's heart was aligned and the mind coherent could the decree be trusted to shape reality without distortion. This was not superstition. It was recognition of the law. Vibration shapes form, and word is vibration concentrated. The act of decree is not begging. It is not asking reality to change. It is announcing that reality has already changed within you and therefore must mirror outwardly. This is why empty affirmations fail. If the word is spoken without heart, without coherence, without will, it is noise. But when the word is spoken from alignment, when the decree rises from identity, it cannot fail. It projects with the force of inevitability. The universe does not argue with coherence. It organizes around it. Consider the difference between saying I want to be free and declaring I am free. The first is longing, a vibration of absence. It emits lack, and so it summons more lack. The second is decree. It emits presence, and so it summons conditions that reflect freedom. The power is not in the syllables. It is in the vibration sustained behind them. Words are vessels. Their force depends on what fills them. Empty words collapse. Charged words command. This is the secret of decree. To live this truth, you must reclaim your tongue. You must treat every word as ritual. Ask yourself, before speaking, does this word align with the frequency I choose to sustain, or does it recycle an old vibration I no longer wish to project? To speak unconsciously is to repeat cycles. To decree consciously is to project new realities. The difference is not small. It is the axis of destiny. Your lips are the gateway of creation. Guard them. Begin with the most sacred of all decrees, I am. This phrase is not grammar. It is Genesis. It is the original formula of being. Whatever follows I am is delivered to the field as command. Use it carelessly, and you will bind yourself to patterns of limitation. Use it with reverence, and you will free yourself into patterns of sovereignty. The ancients inscribed this truth into their temples, their chants, their scriptures. You must inscribe it into your life. Remember, naming is not describing, it is defining. Decree is not wishing, it is declaring. The word is not noise, it is vibration condensed into architecture. To speak is to cast is to create. This is the ancient science of naming and decree, forgotten by the world, but waiting in you. Reclaim it, and your words will cease to be empty. They will become keys. And with those keys, you will open worlds. The word has not lost its power. Humanity has lost its reverence for it. The tongue still sculpts reality. The vibration of sound still configures the field. The decree still functions as law. But modern speech has been stripped of awareness. It has become shallow, careless, mechanical, a stream of noise that leaks energy rather than channels it. This is why the modern person, though surrounded by words, feels powerless. The tools of creation are on their lips, yet their lips scatter rather than shape. The ancients guarded silence because they understood that every sound expends force. To speak without intention is to spill energy into the void. Today, people drown in words. They speak endlessly, not to generate, but to distract, not to create, but to fill the emptiness. Social chatter, constant complaint, casual gossip, these are not harmless. Each phrase carries vibration. Each repetition etches grooves into the field. What was once sacred fire has become cheap fuel wasted on triviality until it burns the speaker rather than illuminating their path. Modern speech weakens power in three ways: dilution, contradiction, and profanity. Dilution occurs when words are too many scattered, like seeds thrown on stone. Instead of concentrating vibration, they disperse it. 1,000 affirmations without coherence dilute force into static. The more you say without sustaining, the less your word generates. Power lies in few words spoken with depth, not many words spoken with emptiness. The master speaks rarely because each word is full. The ordinary person speaks constantly because each word is hollow. Contradiction is the second fracture. You say, "I am strong in the morning and I am exhausted by evening." You decree abundance in meditation and curse lack in conversation. You affirm faith when alone but spread fear when among others. This constant contradiction confuses the field. The vibration emitted is incoherent, fractured, unable to crystallize into form. Reality does not disobey you. It mirrors the incoherence you sustain. This is why the lives of many feel chaotic. Their words collide with one another, and the field reflects the collision. Profanity is the third wound. Not merely vulgar language, though, even that stains vibration, but profanity, in its truest sense, speaking without sacredness. When words are used to wound, to gossip, to complain, to curse, they drag vibration downward. They are not neutral, they are rituals of decay. To repeat them is to conduct ceremonies of weakness. You cannot affirm power while rehearsing defeat. You cannot decree joy while gossiping sorrow. The tongue cannot emit light and shadow with equal force. One will dominate, and the dominant will become your world. This is why modern speech feels powerless. It is not because the word has lost force, but because people use it against themselves. They affirm unconsciously what they do not wish to live. They curse their own days with thoughtless phrases. I'm always unlucky. I'm never enough. Life is against me. These are decrees. They are rituals. Spoken with emotion they project. The person wonders why cycles repeat, unaware that their own lips have scripted the repetition. They blame chance when in truth they have cursed themselves through casual speech. Contrast this with the discipline of the ancients. In temples, words were rationed, chosen, weighed like gold. The disciple learned first to remain silent, to conserve energy, to let vibration build before releasing it as sound. When he did speak, the words carried weight. They were aligned with mind, heart, and will. This is why ancient chants, mantras, and invocations survived millennia. Their power was forged in silence, not drowned in noise. Modern speech, by contrast, is constant leakage, scattering force into dust. You must reclaim reverence for the word if you wish to restore its power. Begin by observing your speech. How often do you dilute yourself with chatter? How often do you contradict your own decrees? How often do you profane your field with complaint or gossip? These habits seem harmless, but they weaken your power as surely as poison weakens the body. To heal, you must purify the tongue. Speak less, but but speak with depth. Remove contradiction. Refuse profanity. Let your words become scarce and sacred so that when they are spoken, they vibrate with force. This is not about repression. It is about remembrance. To treat your speech as sacred is to remember that each word is an act of creation. It is to recognize that silence is not emptiness, but potential, a gathering of energy that waits to be released. When you speak less, your words will burn brighter. When you align them with coherence, they will generate. When you guard them as treasure, they will command reality instead of wasting into it. The weakening of speech in modern times is not irreversible. The science of the word remains eternal. Vibration still obeys law. The universe still mirrors coherence. What has been forgotten can be remembered. Begin by withdrawing from careless language. Choose your words as you would choose a seed to plant in sacred soil. Speak with awareness, not abundance. Decree with conviction, not with doubt. For the field is listening always. It does not filter your speech into serious and casual. It receives every word as vibration, and it reflects what is sustained. Therefore, speak as the ancients spoke, with reverence, with precision, with silence as your ally. Let your tongue become an altar, not a faucet. Let each word be a ritual, not a release. When you restore this sacredness, your speech will no longer weaken you. It will empower you. It will configure reality. And the forgotten science of the word will live again on your lips. The tongue is the gatekeeper between the unseen and the seen. Through it, vibration becomes sound, and sound becomes decree. Every word you release carries a frequency, and every frequency shapes the field. To speak is not merely to communicate, it is to configure reality. This is why the ancients taught their disciples to guard the tongue above all else. A careless tongue builds prisons. A guarded tongue builds temples. The choice is always yours. You may believe your words vanish once spoken, but they do not. They ripple, they vibrate, they echo in your nervous system, they seed your unconscious, they travel into the field, and they summon resonance. The joke you make about your own weakness, the complaint you speak about your life, the gossip you spill about another, these are not harmless. They are decrees. They carve grooves into the vibrational fabric of your being, and the field, obedient and exact, mirrors them back as circumstances. Every word configures whether you meant it or not. This is why life often feels unfair. You affirm abundance for 5 minutes in meditation, but for the rest of the day, you declare lack through complaint. You speak love in ritual, but hatred in casual conversation. You call yourself powerful in vision, but small in dialogue. The field does not choose between these. It reflects the dominant vibration, which is always the most sustained, the most repeated, the most emotionally charged. Thus, your life becomes the fruit of your tongue, not because the universe is cruel, but because it is precise. The ancients therefore practiced silence as discipline. They taught initiates that until the tongue could be trusted, silence was safer than speech. For silence wastes nothing. It gathers energy. It preserves coherence. But careless speech leaks energy in every direction, weakening both the speaker and their projection. To guard the tongue is not to repress, but to remember that every word is sacred. Words are not toys. They are tools of creation, instruments of vibration. To misuse them is to misuse power. Guarding the tongue requires 3 acts: purification, alignment, and consecration. Purification is the removal of speech that corrodes gossip, complaint, curses, idle chatter. Each of these pulls vibration downward, scattering coherence and binding you to unconscious patterns. Alignment is the discipline of ensuring that what you speak matches what you choose to emit. To say I am abundant in meditation and then I am broke to a friend is to fracture your field. Alignment means coherence. Your tongue repeats only what your heart and mind sustain. Consecration is the final step, speaking as ritual, treating each word as offering, each decree as seed planted in sacred soil. When these 3 are practiced, the tongue becomes an instrument of power. But what happens when the tongue is unguarded? Look around. The sickness of humanity is not only in body but in speech. People weaponize words against themselves and others daily. They declare defeat, sickness, despair, and limitation with such casual repetition that these vibrations solidify into entire generations of cycles. Children grow up under the decrees of their parents' tongues. We are poor. Life is hard. Dreams are dangerous, and so inherit not only DNA but vibrational prisons. Entire cultures are sustained by repeated phrases of fear and separation. This is the cost of an unguarded tongue collective, curses disguised as casual language. The truth is simple, but severe. Your tongue is your wand. It casts continuously. The question is not whether it creates, but what it creates. Will you let it curse unconsciously, or will you train it to bless consciously? Will you allow it to repeat inherited scripts of fear, or will you consecrate it to project new realities? To guard the tongue is to reclaim sovereignty. To neglect it is to surrender your destiny to habit and noise. Begin small. Notice the phrases you repeat without awareness. Catch yourself in complaint. Catch yourself in gossip. Catch yourself when you declare lack or sickness. Do not condemn yourself. Awareness is the first act of guarding. Then withdraw the tongue from what does not serve. Replace it with speech aligned to the vibration you choose. Say little, but say with weight. Speak less, but speak with coherence. Let silence hold the place of what you cannot yet consecrate. In time, your speech will become ritual, and your ritual will become reality. Guarding the tongue is the art of mastery. The masters of old were not powerful because they spoke endlessly, but because when they spoke, the universe obeyed. Their tongues were guarded, their words consecrated, their speech aligned. They wasted nothing, and so every decree carried force. You can reclaim this art. You can turn your tongue from an enemy into an ally, from a leaky faucet into a sacred instrument. But it requires vigilance. It requires reverence. It requires remembering that the tongue is not casual, it is creative. Every word configures the field. Every phrase plants a seed. Every sentence sets vibration into motion. Do not waste them. Do not profane them. Guard them as you would. Guard fire in a dark night, for they are your light, your heat, your creation. When your tongue is guarded, your field becomes coherent. When your field is coherent, your reality must obey. So guard your tongue not out of fear, but out of remembrance. For your words are not small. They are the architecture of worlds. Every effort you make, every ritual you practice, every decree you speak, eventually collapses beneath the weight of one truth. Identity always wins. You may declare abundance, but if your identity is lack, your field obeys lack. You may affirm love, but if your identity is abandonment, you will recycle abandonment. You may visualize freedom, but if your identity is bondage, you will reproduce chains. For the field does not obey what you hope, it obeys what you are. And what you are is the vibration of your deepest identity. Identity is not the mask you wear for others. It is not the titles you collect or the roles you perform. Identity is the subterranean hum of your being, the tone you emit without speaking, the posture you carry, without trying the name beneath every name. It is the silent decree that whispers, I am this, and because the universe mirrors vibration, it becomes law. This is why identity overrules effort. No matter how many practices you adopt, if the root identity contradicts them, the field reflects the root. Always. Identity always wins. This truth is both painful and liberating. Painful because it reveals why so much effort fails. You have tried to force outcomes, piling affirmations upon affirmations, but the root identity remained unshaken. You attempted to convince the field with words while your vibration declared otherwise. This is why change felt temporary, why breakthroughs dissolved, why cycles returned. It was not because the field ignored you, it was because it obeyed the stronger note, the deeper hum, and the deepest hum is always identity. But this truth is also liberation. For if identity governs vibration, then the path is not to fight circumstance endlessly, but to transform identity. To shift who you are, not merely what you do. When identity changes, vibration changes. When vibration changes, projection changes. And when projection changes, reality reorganizes itself. The most radical transformation you can achieve is not in effort, but in essence. You do not need to struggle to build a new life. You need to become the identity that sustains it, and the life will obey. Consider this. When you take on an identity, your nervous system aligns itself around it. Your brain filters information to confirm it. Your body produces hormones to embody it. Your choices gravitate toward it. Your environment reshapes itself in response to it. Identity is the architect of all systems: mental, emotional, biological, and external. This is why the phrase, "I am," is so powerful. Whatever follows those words organizes your entire being into coherence, and coherence always projects into form. The tragedy of the unconscious is that identities are often inherited, not chosen. You were told you are unworthy, so you vibrate unworthiness. You were shown that life is scarce, so you vibrate scarcity. You were taught that love abandons, so you vibrate abandonment. These unconscious identities hum beneath your affirmations, nullifying them, and until they are uprooted, they will continue to win. Identity always wins. How then do you transform identity? Not by performance, but by embodiment. To embody means to live as though the new identity is already true, until your nervous system, your emotions, and your choices align with it. You cannot simply say, "I am worthy." You must breathe as worthy, walk as worthy, decide as worthy. You must catch every moment of contradiction and realign it. Slowly, the body learns, the mind adjusts, and the heart begins to hum the new tone. And once the tone is coherent, the field mirrors it without resistance. This is why the masters emphasized being overdoing. They understood that effort without identity is wasted fuel. A poor man can win the lottery, but if his identity remains scarcity, he will return to poverty. A lonely heart can attract a partner, but if its identity remains abandonment, it will sabotage the relationship. The outer event may shift, but the inner hum pulls reality back into alignment with identity. This is not punishment, it is law, and it explains why so many who taste change cannot hold it. They shifted circumstance but not identity, and identity always wins. The work then is not to beg for new realities, but to assume new identities, to stop trying to get abundance and to begin being abundance, to stop longing for love and to begin being love, to stop asking for freedom and to begin walking as freedom. This is not pretense, it is initiation. When you align your inner hum with the identity you choose, you no longer chase reality. Reality chases you, for it must mirror what you are. Identity is the root of sovereignty. To master it is to stop being a victim of cycles. You cannot be betrayed if betrayal is not in your identity. You cannot be poor if poverty is no longer your hum. You cannot be bound if freedom is your tone. The field has no choice but to obey identity, because identity is vibration sustained, and vibration is law. So look within, ask yourself not what you want, but who you are. If who you are contradicts what you want, identity will win and desire will fail. If who you are aligns with what you want, identity will win and desire will manifest. The outcome is always certain. The only variable is identity. Change it and the universe bends. Ignore it and the universe repeats. Identity always wins. If identity always wins, then the path of transformation is not to wait for proof, but to begin living as if. This is the ancient secret, hidden in plain sight. Assume the state you wish to embody, and reality must bend to it. The modern mind resists this teaching, calling it delusion or pretense. But the universe does not mirror appearances, it mirrors vibration. And vibration responds not to what you hope, but to what you consistently enact. To live as if is not to lie to yourself. It is to align with the identity you choose before evidence arrives to emit the frequency until the evidence has no choice but to appear. The nervous system obeys this law faithfully. Your brain cannot distinguish vividly imagined experience from lived experience. To act, feel, and decide as if the desired identity is already true begins to rewire the brain. The ancient mystics understood this intuitively, and modern neuroscience confirms it. Neurons that fire together, wire together. This is Hebbian reinforcement. Every time you enact the chosen identity, you strengthen the neural circuits that sustain it. Every decision you make in alignment with, as if is not wasted it, is carving the architecture of your new self. Consider the person who chooses abundance. If they wait for external wealth before embodying the vibration, they remain in scarcity. Their identity is still lack. But if they begin to carry themselves as abundant, walking with dignity, making decisions from sufficiency, releasing words of gratitude, they live as if, and the nervous system adapts. Soon the brain reorganizes its pathways to support abundance. The body shifts, hormones follow perception, filters align, and the external world begins to echo the new hum. The as-if protocol is not fantasy. It is rehearsal for reality, until rehearsal becomes reality. But beware, as if is not performance. Performance hopes to convince others. True, as if convinces the self. To play a role outwardly while vibrating doubt inwardly is hypocrisy, and the field will mirror the doubt, not the performance. To live as if is to saturate thought, feeling, and action with the chosen identity, until no fracture remains. This requires vigilance. It requires catching every contradiction and choosing again. It is not about pretending in moments of convenience. It is about sustaining consistently until the nervous system accepts the new pattern as baseline. Then, and only then, identity has shifted. This is where Hebbian reinforcement becomes crucial. Every time you act in alignment with the new identity, you strengthen the neural bridge. Every time you contradict it, you weaken the bridge. The brain is plastic, always rewiring, always adapting. You are sculpting it daily, whether consciously or unconsciously. To live unconsciously is to reinforce old identities, carving grooves of fear, scarcity, and unworthiness. To live consciously, as if, is to carve new grooves of courage, abundance, and sovereignty. Over time, the grooves deepen, the circuits strengthen, and the old patterns dissolve. What once felt forced becomes natural. What once felt like effort becomes memory. This is identity transmutation. Think of the disciple training in the temple. He does not wait to be told he is enlightened before he acts as one. He practices the gestures, the silence, the rituals, until the gestures cease to be practice and become essence. The outer rehearsal rewires the inner being. This is Hebbian law in action. Repetition sculpts identity. Living as if is not waiting, it is sculpting. Each act is a stroke of the chisel, each choice a carving into the stone of the self. Eventually, the sculpture emerges, not because it was built overnight, but because every stroke was aligned with the final form. The pain for most is impatience. They live as if for a day and see no change, then collapse back into the old identity. But the field does not mirror the experiment, it mirrors the sustained hum. A single decision is not enough. It must be reinforced until coherence becomes stronger than contradiction. The law is relentless. Neurons that fire together wire together. Emit the vibration long enough, and it will become identity. Sustain the identity long enough, and it will project into form. It cannot fail, because the field obeys coherence as faithfully as the brain obeys repetition. This is why the as-if protocol is not optional, it is necessary. Without it, you remain trapped in waiting, hoping for proof before you embody change. But waiting is vibration of lack, and lack always projects more lack. To step into as-if is to break the cycle, to declare identity first, to emit coherence before proof arrives. And proof will arrive not as reward but as reflection. The field has no choice but to mirror what is sustained. So begin now. Choose one identity you are ready to embody. Live as if it were already yours. Walk with its posture, breathe with its rhythm, speak with its tone. Catch every contradiction and replace it with coherence. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Each repetition strengthens the circuit. Each act engraves the vibration deeper. Soon you will no longer be acting as if, you will simply be. And when you are, the field must obey. Identity always wins. And the way identity changes is through embodiment, not waiting. Live as if, and the universe will have no choice but to agree. Identity is not a philosophy. It is a vibration lived through the body. To think new thoughts and declare new words is powerful, But without embodiment, the vibration remains incomplete. The body is the final instrument of coherence, the vessel through which identity becomes visible. Posture, breath, and action are not afterthoughts. They are the anchors that seal identity into matter. If you wish to project a new frequency, you must embody it. To embody is not to pretend. It is to align your flesh with your decree until the body hums in agreement with the soul. Posture is the first gate. Before you speak, before you act, your body already broadcasts your identity. Shoulders collapsed, chest closed, spine bent forward. This posture whispers defeat, no matter how loudly your tongue declares victory. A body that shrinks tells the field, I am small. A body that expands tells the field, I am sovereign. Posture is silent decree. The nervous system reads it, your biology adjusts to it, and the field mirrors it. This is why ancient disciplines such as yoga, martial arts, and ritual dance treated posture as sacred technology. They knew that form shapes frequency. To stand upright is to emit uprightness. To bow unconsciously is to emit submission. The field listens not only to words, but to the geometry of your body. Breath is the second gate. Breath is the rhythm of vibration, the bridge between thought and body. Shallow breath sustains anxiety. Erratic breath sustains chaos. Deep, coherent breath sustains presence. Every inhale carries a frequency. Every exhale releases one. To breathe with intention is to program your vibration moment by moment. This is why the mystics practiced pranayama, why shamans aligned breath with chant, why monks synchronized inhalation with prayer. They knew that breath is not merely biological, it is vibrational currency. To command the breath is to command the field. When your breath slows and deepens, your vibration stabilizes and the field reflects stability. When your breath fragments, your vibration fractures and the field reflects disorder. Breath is identity in motion. Action is the third gate, and here lies the hardest truth. Without action, identity collapses. You can think abundantly, feel abundantly, breathe abundantly, but if you act from scarcity, the vibration fractures. Action is the final stamp of coherence, the signal to the nervous system that this identity is real. But action need not be grand. The field does not measure scale, it measures alignment. This is why micro-courage is sacred. Every small act that aligns with your chosen identity rewires your brain and deepens your vibration. Sending the message you've avoided, declining the invitation that contradicts your frequency. Choosing nourishment over sabotage, these micro-acts accumulate. Each one is a vote for the identity you are becoming. Each one reinforces coherence. Over time, they become unbreakable law. This is the science of embodiment, posture, breath, and micro-courage, forming a trinity of practice. Together, they anchor vibration into flesh. Without them, identity remains theory. With them, identity becomes undeniable. This is why the masters moved with dignity, breathed with calm, and acted with unwavering integrity. They did not wait for reality to grant them coherence. They embodied coherence, and reality was forced to agree. Reflect on your own body. How does it stand? How does it breathe? How does it act when no one is watching? These are not trivial details. They are the loudest signals you emit. If your posture contradicts your decree, your body will win. If your breath sustains fear, your body will win. If your actions recycle old patterns, your body will win. The body cannot be bypassed. It is the amplifier of your vibration. Until it is aligned, identity is incomplete. The work is not to perfect the body, but to consecrate it. Stand each morning as if your spine were a pillar of light. Breathe as though each inhale were proof of abundance, and each exhale were release of scarcity. Choose one act of micro-courage each day, one small decision that reflects your chosen identity, and let it be your ritual. Over time, the body learns. Posture becomes natural. Breath becomes coherent. Courage becomes instinct. And when body, mind, and heart align, the vibration is unshakable. Do not underestimate the power of these small practices. Entire destinies are redirected by the tilt of a chin, the depth of a breath, the courage of a single choice. What seems small is monumental, because vibration does not measure size, It measures coherence. The universe is not impressed by effort, it is impressed by alignment. One coherent act outweighs 1,000 fractured ones. One breath of presence outweighs hours of anxious chatter. One posture of sovereignty outweighs countless words of insecurity. Embodiment makes identity real, and identity once real always wins. So let your body become your altar. Guard its posture, sanctify its breath, consecrate its actions. Do not treat them as afterthoughts, for they are your loudest decree. Walk as if you are already free. Breathe as if you are already whole. Act as if you are already abundant. In time, you will no longer need to remind yourself. You will simply be. And when you are, the field will mirror without hesitation. For posture, breath, and micro-courage are not practices, they are portals. Step through them, and your chosen identity will cease to be desire. It will become destiny. Between declaration and manifestation lies a space, a gap that tests the soul. You speak, you decree, you embody. Yet the reflection does not arrive instantly. Here, impatience awakens. Here, doubt rises. Here, many abandon coherence and return to the old vibration, forfeiting what was already forming. This interval is not punishment, it is integration. The gap is the furnace where identity is tested, where vibration is solidified, where trust replaces desperation. To understand and master the gap is to walk with peace, while the unseen rearranges itself to obey you. The modern mind despises waiting. Conditioned by urgency, it demands immediacy, instant answers, instant results, instant proof. But the field is not bound by your impatience. Vibration must first stabilize before form can densify. The gap is the womb where vibration matures. To demand premature birth is to destroy what is becoming. To force the process is to fracture coherence. This is why non-forcing is sacred. Forcing is a vibration of doubt. It declares, if I do not push, nothing will happen. Trust is the opposite. Trust declares, because I have emitted it, must arrive. The difference between the two is the difference between cycles of frustration and the inevitability of creation. Consider the seed. When planted, it does not sprout overnight. It dissolves, breaks open, roots downward, gathers strength unseen before it pushes upward into visibility. To judge the seed during its hidden phase is folly. Yet this is exactly what people do with their declarations. They plant the vibration, but seeing no immediate proof, they dig it up with doubt. Each day, they uproot the seed with complaint. It isn't working. Nothing is changing. And so the cycle resets not because the law failed, but because the emitter fractured coherence. The gap did not betray them. They betrayed themselves in the gap. Trust is not passive. It is active alignment. To trust is to hold the frequency regardless of appearances, to continue breathing, posturing, and acting as the identity you declared. It is to refuse the temptation to beg or bargain, to remember that begging is a vibration of lack and bargaining is a vibration of fear. Trust does not beg. Trust does not force. Trust emits steadily, knowing the field cannot resist coherence. The ancients called this walking in faith, not blind faith, but vibrational fidelity. To trust is to embody the end before it appears, to live as though the reflection were already present because vibrationally it is. Integration is the hidden gift of the gap. During this time, your nervous system adjusts to the new frequency. Old reflexes rise to the surface, demanding to be seen and released. Memories of contradiction echo, offering you the chance to choose again. This is not regression, it is refinement. The gap exposes fractures so they can be healed. If you interpret these echoes as failure, you collapse. But if you interpret them as integration, you strengthen. The gap is not empty, it is overflowing with opportunity to become unshakable in your identity. Each moment you hold coherence in the absence of proof deepens the groove of your new vibration. By the time form appears, you are already its match. Non-forcing is the discipline that sustains you here. To force is to attempt control over outcomes, to meddle in the mechanics of the field, to demand timelines and results. but the field organizes with a precision beyond your comprehension. Your role is not to dictate how and when it is to sustain vibration until the reflection arrives. Forcing scatters, trust gathers. Forcing fractures, trust integrates. This is why surrender is not weakness, but power. It is the refusal to dilute coherence with desperation. It is the recognition that the field is faithful and does not require your panic to operate. The pain of the gap is real. The old identity still echoes, and the new identity has not yet crystallized into form. You feel suspended between worlds, one dissolving the other not yet visible. This is liminality, the threshold where many collapse. But if you endure, if you sustain, the threshold becomes a passage. The void becomes a womb. And when the new reality arrives, you will see that the gap was not delay, it was preparation. It was proof of your power, for only in the absence of evidence could you prove to yourself that identity had changed. Anyone can believe when results are visible. Only the master believes before, and the master receives inevitably because coherence cannot fail. So honor the gap, trust in the silence, integrate the echoes. Refuse to force. The unseen is rearranging itself, even now sculpted by your sustained vibration. Do not dig up the seed with impatience. Do not fracture coherence with doubt. Stand in the gap as the ancients stood calm, unwavering, radiant with faith. For the gap is not against you. The gap is for you. It is the place where you become unshakable, where your vibration is tested into permanence, where your identity ceases to be fragile experiment and becomes eternal decree. When you master the gap, nothing in existence can withhold from you again. When you shift vibration, reality does not always change at once. The field reorganizes gradually, and in this process it sends you signals, subtle reflections, faint ripples, early confirmations. These are echoes. They are not yet the full form of what you declared, but they are the first vibrations returning to you, proof that the field has heard and is aligning. The tragedy is that most people miss them. They are so focused on the absence of the final result that they ignore the evidence already appearing. To miss the echo is to weaken gratitude. To weaken gratitude is to fracture coherence. And when coherence fractures, the projection collapses. Echoes are delicate. They may appear as synchronicities, small encounters, or subtle shifts in atmosphere. You declare abundance, and soon you notice unexpected generosity, a discount, a gift, an opportunity you would have overlooked before. These are not coincidences. They are echoes, faint reflections of the frequency you are sustaining. If you dismiss them, calling them insignificant, you diminish your own power. But if you recognize them, honor them, and magnify them with gratitude, you amplify the vibration. Gratitude is resonance. It multiplies what is acknowledged. To ignore evidence is to silence the echo. To praise evidence is to turn the echo into a song. Pattern recognition is the skill that separates the master from the novice. The novice waits only for the final form, blind to the signals along the way. The master reads the subtle signs, noticing the small confirmations, interpreting even the faintest echo as proof of coherence. This recognition is not delusion, it is science. The brain itself filters experience through the reticular activating system, highlighting what aligns with your sustained vibration. When you choose to see evidence, you are not fabricating it, you are tuning to it. And the more you tune, the more it appears. The universe does not withhold proof. It whispers it, waiting for you to hear. Gratitude is the amplifier of these whispers. To express gratitude for small evidence is to expand the channel. The law of resonance ensures that what you praise increases. When you declare abundance and then give thanks for even the smallest provision, you align your vibration with abundance itself. Gratitude is not reaction, it is participation. It does not wait for the final outcome. It energizes the process. To withhold gratitude until manifestation is complete is to declare, I do not yet have. To practice gratitude for echoes is to declare, it is already arriving. The difference in vibration is everything, but gratitude is often misunderstood. It is not shallow positivity or forced cheerfulness. True gratitude is vibrational alignment. It is the recognition that every echo, No matter how small, is evidence of coherence. Gratitude transforms impatience into trust. It prevents the fracture that occurs when the mind says, "Nothing is happening." For in truth, something is always happening. The field is always rearranging. Echoes are proof. Gratitude magnifies proof. This cycle accelerates manifestation, not because gratitude bribes the universe, but because it sustains the vibration long enough for the field to mirror fully. Reflect on your own journey. How often have you dismissed early signs? You prayed for healing, then ignored the small moments of energy returning to your body. You declared love, then disregarded the kind gestures of strangers waiting only for romance. You decreed abundance, then overlooked the unexpected savings that appeared. These were not trivial. They were echoes. They were reality whispering, "It is working," and by ignoring them, you weakened your own faith. The law did not fail. You failed to read the law in motion. To master this, cultivate the practice of daily recognition. Ask yourself, what evidence appeared today that reflects my new vibration? Search carefully for. The echo may be faint. Then honor it. Write it. Speak it. Praise it. Gratitude is the act of anchoring the echo into awareness, magnifying its vibration until it becomes undeniable. Soon the faint ripples gather into waves. The whispers turn into chorus. The echoes become manifestation. Not because the universe suddenly decided to grant your request, but because you sustained coherence through recognition and gratitude. Gratitude also protects you from the trap of doubt. Doubt thrives on blindness. It whispers, "Nothing is happening." Gratitude answers, "Everything is happening." Doubt fractures the hum. Gratitude sustains it. This is why the ancients practiced ritual thanksgiving before results appeared. They knew gratitude was not response but alignment. To give thanks before the harvest was to declare that the harvest was inevitable. To withhold thanks until proof was visible was to declare uncertainty. Gratitude practiced in the gap is the shield that protects coherence until reality bends. The master of vibration does not wait for the final reflection to celebrate. They celebrate echoes as if they were completion because vibrationally they are. The field does not distinguish between gratitude for small or large, it only registers frequency. When you vibrate as if abundance is already here, abundance must multiply. When you vibrate as if love is already yours, love must multiply. Gratitude is the act of living as if expressed through praise. So open your eyes, listen for echoes, recognize evidence, celebrate it however faint, however small. Let gratitude saturate your being until no fracture remains. For every echo is proof, every whisper is alignment, every fragment is the seed of fullness. When you learn to read the echoes and magnify them with gratitude, you will never again collapse in the gap. You will know that reality is already bending, that manifestation is already forming, that your vibration has already been heard. Gratitude makes you unshakable. Gratitude makes you inevitable. Every decree begins with "I am." These two words are not mere grammar, they are Genesis. Whatever follows them becomes law in the field, whether spoken aloud or whispered unconsciously. Most people imagine they are powerless because their affirmations do not manifest, yet they ignore the deeper truth. Their lives already manifest. Affirmations they never meant to declare. I am tired, I am unlucky, I am always abandoned. These unconscious I ams repeat like mantras, projecting vibrations into the field with ruthless consistency. And because the field does not discriminate, it mirrors them. You are not failing to create, you are creating too well. You are living inside decrees you never noticed yourself making. The first step, then, is exposure. You must bring these unconscious declarations into the light. Pay attention to your casual speech, your habitual self-descriptions, the silent phrases that pass through your mind without question. They are your true rituals, the ceremonies you have been conducting unknowingly. Write them, hear them, do not dismiss them as harmless. Every repetition etches vibration deeper. Every phrase configures the field. What feels like just a thought or just a phrase is in truth an altar. To awaken is to recognize the power you have been wielding unconsciously. Once exposed, you must undo. Undoing is not denial, it is transmutation. To deny an unconscious I am gives it attention and strength. To transmute it is to replace it with a higher decree, to overwrite the code with coherence. If your unconscious mantra has been, I am unworthy, denial is futile. You cannot erase vibration by pretending it does not exist. But you can introduce a stronger vibration, I am worthy. You can sustain it with posture, breath, and action until the old decree dissolves. This is not a battle, it is replacement. The weaker hum fades when the stronger is sustained. Yet even replacement must be lived, not spoken only. If you declare, I am worthy, but continue to act as unworthy, the body betrays you. If you declare, I am abundant but breathe scarcity, the nervous system betrays you. Words alone cannot undo unconscious decrees. They must be embodied. Each time you align action with the new I am, you reinforce the circuit. Each time you contradict it, you fracture. Undoing is a process of coherence, not performance. It requires vigilance, repetition, and embodiment until the new decree becomes identity. Once the unconscious I ams are transmuted, you are ready to live the master's formula. And so it is. These words are the seal of decree, the final stamp that closes vibration into certainty. To say, and so it is not to hope, but to declare completion. It is vibrational finality. It signals to the field, this identity is now. This vibration is law. The field obeys not because you begged, but because coherence has been sealed with sovereignty. And so it is the language of masters who no longer doubt their authority to live in. And so it is to stop negotiating with reality. You no longer beg for proof. You no longer bargain for outcomes. You no longer recycle contradiction. You walk as though the decree were already true, because vibrationally it is. You breathe, act, and speak from the certainty that what is sustained must manifest. When you live in, and so it is, you no longer collapse in the gap because you understand the law. You no longer fear echoes because you read them as evidence. You no longer recycle unconscious I ams because you have replaced them with chosen ones. You become sovereign. You become emitter. You become author. But beware to live in. And so it is not arrogance. It is humility. Arrogance demands. Humility declares. Arrogance fights for outcomes. Humility sustains vibration knowing the outcome is inevitable. And so it is not an attempt to control the universe. It is recognition that the universe already obeys coherence. It is surrender to law, not force against it. The master does not shout, and so it is to prove power. They whisper it as confirmation, knowing the decree is already complete. This is the culmination of vibrational mastery, to replace unconscious I ams with conscious ones, to embody them fully, and to seal them with, and so it is. From this place, your life ceases to be accident. It becomes deliberate projection. You no longer recycle inherited scripts. You project chosen realities, and the field exact and impartial mirrors them with fidelity. So ask yourself now, what unconscious I ams have written your days? What careless decrees have you lived as law? Expose them, replace them, embody the new. And when you have aligned mind, heart, body, and breath, seal it, and so it is. Repeat this until no fracture remains, until your nervous system hums the decree without effort, until your silence vibrates with the truth of it. Then you will no longer need to convince yourself. You will simply be. And when you are, the field must obey. And so it is. You have walked the path from unconscious vibration to conscious projection. You have seen how thought, word, posture, breath, and identity are not fragments of life but instruments of creation. You now understand that nothing in your reality is accident. It is resonance. It is emission. It is law. The old unconscious I ams no longer rule you. You have learned to replace them, embody them, and seal them with, and so it is. You have mastered the gap, read the echoes, and held coherence when proof seemed absent. You have remembered what the ancients never forgot, that to emit is to create, and to create is your nature. Carry this remembrance beyond the page. Speak fewer words, but speak them as decree. Walk with posture that announces sovereignty. Breathe as if every inhale is abundance. Choose acts of micro-courage that reinforce identity. Let gratitude be your shield, trust your foundation, and silence your ally. For you are not here to recycle patterns. You are here to project realities unseen. You are not here to beg for miracles. You are here to generate them. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are an emitter of destiny. Declare it, embody it, live it, and so it is.